Hello, everyone. Welcome to the EJG3 show. Th- My name is Edward Gallagher, or Eddie Gallagher. I am here with Ryan Joyce. Ryan, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, of course, man. I'm excited. I've obviously seen it from afar. I'm a big follower on Instagram and YouTube, so I'm happy to be here.
Hey, let's recap NBA round one. There's still games that are playing, but
Mhm.
let's just recap the most important ones. Let's start with the Wolves Lakers game. Ryan, this was a big time upset. I did not see this coming. Um, I thought the Lakers would easily win because I thought they had the two biggest names on the court, LeBron and Luca. Turns out the Wolves just absolutely dominated them.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think that the big thing is that LeBron, ever since his title, has been a little bit like a bunch of first round exits. I know he had that Western Conference Finals a couple years ago, but it's very interesting. It's kind of a Anthony Edwards is on a run right now where he's been taking down like a lot of the top guys in the league. Like I know last year he took down Devin Booker and or no yeah last year like Devin Booker and KD, and then this year take down Luca and LeBron. So he's kind of on a run right now where he's taking over like these Hall of Fame type of guys, which is insane. But I don't know. I think it's another interesting point in the fact that the Lakers, I think, had enough to get it done this year. They make that big push to get Luca, and it's when you only get one game and you kind of flame out early, it's a little interesting because you think you have, three, four kind of guys that can get it done. Austin Reeves, LeBron, and Luca, and Rudy Gobert just was dominant in that series. And I think what's the most important part of that is that a lot of people have said he can't play in like the end of the fourth quarter games. It's like a big, but he was dominant defensively down stretch there. And I feel like Anthony Edwards is kind of a guy now that now taking down these type of guys. I mean, we'll see what happens next round, but he could be making a run here for the next face of the league.
Oh, sure. I think the Wolves could easily make it to the Western Conference Finals.
Mhm.
They have the talent. We'll see who their next opponent is, either Rockets or the Warriors. Um, I'm just, I, we have guys like Giannis, Nikola Jokic, um, Tyrese Halliburton, um, Jason Tatum. We're kind of looking for that new face of the NBA. And obviously, a lot of the faces of the NBA are American. So we're kind of getting these European players who are probably the best players in the league right now. Uh, do you think Anthony Edwards has a chance to be that new face to replace LeBron James?
I think he does, but I feel like you could maybe agree with me that his image isn't as family friendly. He's a little brash for people. I feel like he's a little bit of like a crap talker. Like he'll talk in the court a lot.
Little cocky, but you know
Yeah,
what?
which
That's
is
okay.
never a bad thing, but it's when you look at like someone like LeBron, like yes, he complains about foul calls, he complains of the refs and all that, but he's easily marketable. So I think it's a weird thing to where like I could see Anthony Edwards as the face of the league. Like I that's what I think what could happen, but he's not as maybe easily marketable as other players, even though I keep seeing that commercial. He's like in the car with that one guy. I see it over and over and over again. But in terms of a playmaker, like he's definitely like very exciting to watch. Like I think he's super athletic, one of the best scorers in the league. Now, the one thing I would say is I could see maybe like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander as being another guy if you're talking about American guys, or guys that aren't
Canadian.
necessarily European. Yeah. Um, I know, yeah, he's Canadian, but I could see him maybe as being a face of the league. I think for a while people wanted to see like a Luka or Nikola Jokic, but I feel like those guys they don't want to be in the media enough. Or obviously Jokic, he likes his horses and stuff like that, so he's not going to be directly talking to the media all the time. But I could definitely see him being a face of the league, making a run for it.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, he's still trying to cement his legacy. He's still a very, very young player.
Hmm.
Um, but I tell you, I mean, I think the NBA, at least for me, I think I want it to be American. It's, you know, Americans love American basketball players. I mean, no offense. I mean, but we're just so used to Americans. We just want that American, lavish style,
Yep.
who's who loves playing basketball, who talks crap, know, he's kind of like the MJ, or Kobe, just in your face competitor. Now, to be the face of the league, I think you have to win a championship.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, I would say Kobe was the face of the league before LeBron. Once LeBron took that title, we had a new era. And
Yeah.
you could say Steph Curry was the face of the league, but I think LeBron was still better than him. And they were kind of going back and forth. But yeah, no, we'll see. There's Wemby is always an option.
Hmm.
Uh, I still think all these young, talented guys, they're still trying to cement themselves, and you know, we're trying. A lot of the older guys, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, LeBron, they're kind of getting moved out. Hey, this is a new era of young guys, and the NBA needs to. I think the NBA would love to see that, to be honest with you. Like,
Yeah.
hey, let's get Jason Tatum, Wemby, more shine in the media, be on TV more. That's just my thought.
Do you think in terms of, I know a big issue is the past few years that the NBA's kind of been overtaken. I mean, I don't know if it's overtaken, but like the ratings and people have cared more about the NFL in the past couple years. Do you think it's because there really isn't like a household name yet that's in like a young guy? Because I feel like when I look at the NBA right now, it's like you mentioned it, like LeBron, KD, Steph, those guys are 35, 40 years old. Do you think it's an issue of not having so many young stars, or what's your like?
I think a little bit because the biggest games were Steph versus LeBron. I think that was the most eyeball games. But also there's so many games in the NBA. In the NFL, what I like about them is they market everybody. The NBA, it's kind of still marketing. LeBron, Steph, Kevin Durant. They didn't really market Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, they don't even really market Jalen Brunson. So it's kind of that thing where it's like the NHL they market everybody. The NBA kind of market their star players, and
Hmm.
I don't know. That's just my opinion. NFL's a league. NBA is mostly about stars. So
Yeah.
that I just think that's the reality.
Yeah, no, I think it's easier if you're a small market like NFL player. Even though I guess there really is no like small market in the NFL because every team's like pretty, on big stage sometimes. But I feel like a guy like Anthony Edwards being in Minnesota can hurt him sometimes, even though they're like a winning team. It's just he's not like an LA, New York, Boston type of guy. So
Yeah, no,
that might
that
that might hurt him a little bit, but
no, that's true. Okay, so let's shift to this. Obviously, Lakers got bounced out. Who do you think deserves the most blame?
that's a good question. I think they just didn't have a bench. You know what I mean? I feel like it's I don't know if it's necessarily a Rob Pelinka problem because you bite the bullet and you go for Luca, like you go all the way in for star players, but it just seemed like down the stretch Minnesota had so many guys come off the bench like a Nas Reed or like a McDaniels or kind of guys like that are just impact players that don't have to necessarily score the basketball. I think an issue with the Lakers is they had decent role guys, but you're getting nothing out of Gabe Vincent. You're getting really nothing out of like a Cam Reddish or like those kind of guys off the bench. It might be the fact that they just didn't have enough defensive pieces. Um, they were kind of looking as Dorian Finney-Smith is like their main 3-and-D guy, and he wasn't doing that well on the defensive end. And then Luca also, I know you probably noticed this that last game. He looked out of shape. He looked like he was. There's a couple times where they would not call the whistle for a while, not blow the whistle for a while, and he was looking over at, his coach or Coach Reddick, and he would just head down, like can't really like you keep playing. Like it was just like looked like a conditioning thing, which was kind of the issue that was in Dallas, that he wasn't, conditioned well enough anymore to win championships. So I don't want to give any credit to Nico Harrison, but like in terms of that series, it looked like he was just outmatched in terms of, end the game maybe not being having the most energy. So I guess to like sum it up, I would say they didn't have enough on the bench because I think the Luka trade kind of going all in might have hurt him just a tiny bit.
Um, I think JJ Redick, obviously first year head coach,
Mhm.
I think he learned, hey, you know what? I can't play LeBron James, who's 40 years old, playing the whole second half. I think he looked winded. Like you said, Luka looked winded. Austin Reeves, he's a good player. He's a solid player, but he's not your star player. He's a three guy, maybe a four guy, and
Mhm.
you know, any NBA playoffs, the defense really locks up. And he struggled a little bit. I just think they got out coached. I think JJ Redick, and by the way, JJ, stop acting tough in the media. You know, and stop. You're not at Duke anymore. You're the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Stop acting tough. Admit that you were wrong by playing those guys the whole second half. You should have played
Mhm.
a little bit of bench. So I think first of all, coaching it was a coaching mismatch. I think B, their star players did not play well. That's just a reality.
And he played those guys like 30. I think I saw all the starters played, maybe except for like Finney Smith. I think everyone played like over 35 minutes. So he was very like starting lineup like heavy oriented, which that could be your point that he's like a first year coach and he's like I'm gonna ride with my guys, like I don't feel comfortable with my bench. But you think it's like an accountability issue with JJ Redick? You think like he needs to, I guess, own up to, I know he's a first year coach, but you think he didn't like own up to maybe his mistakes enough? That's
Yeah,
what you're.
he was trying to be a tough coach, or that tough guy, like in the media,
Mhm.
slamming the table, trying to motivate the players, but it just didn't work. You're dealing with grown men, and I just, but credit to T-Wolves,
Yeah.
they were a more complete team. I think Luca joined the team with 20 something plus games remaining, so it could have been a chemistry thing. So uh, I think one of the things that Luca, he's a great offensive player, but there's a couple things that he needs to do. A, last game of the series, the last few minutes, man, guys were playing and he was still complaining with the refs. Stop complaining to the refs. All right, they didn't call the foul. You're not gonna get every call. And B, you gotta be in better shape. Like we talked earlier, he
Mhm.
looked fat, slow. And JJ Redick said during his ending press conference, we gotta get into championship level shape.
Do you think that was directly at Luca? Or do you think that was
I
more
think
of
I think
uh
I think it was everyone. He
okay.
didn't call out a specific name, but yeah, I would think Luca.
Yeah. So I guess my next question is, do you think LeBron is gonna come back for another year, or do you think he's done? 'Cause that's a big
You know,
thing. People are saying that he
you
might
know
be done
he
for
can he can opt out, but LeBron loves to be in the media. He loves to uh talk nonstop about different things. Oh, we didn't have this, we didn't have that. It's like, dude, stop giving excuses. Um, I think he'll stay because he now has Luca. I think he has an off season to work with them.
Mhm.
Um, but the reality is, LeBron James is 40 years old,
Yeah.
and he doesn't look the same. Like he's still a very good player, a top 10 player in the league, but not everybody can be Tom Brady. Some people just retire. So I think you'll give maybe another season. But I think you can see. I think you can easily say he might retire soon.
Yeah, he could. I think I can't see a world where LeBron doesn't do like a retirement tour. Like there's I don't think there's any way like and I'm a LeBron fan, but like I don't think there's any way where he's just gonna go like in the darkness and just be like, well, I'm done. Like he seems like a guy he wants the entire like year to be like celebrated and have like going away gifts and all that. So I could definitely like I hear people saying that he's gonna leave like this was his last year. But there's no way he's going out without a retirement tour or like a celebration thing. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I um and plus his son is sort of on a team, still developing. So I think he wants to be with his son.
yeah.
So we'll see. Um, Congratulations to the Wolves. We'll see you in round two. I want to go to the Bucks Pacers game. First off, I want to start with Damian Lillard. Uh, he came back from a blood clot. Around game four, I believe he tears his ACL.
Mhm.
Um, I just feel so bad for that guy, and I want to give him credit for saying, "Hey, thank you for coming back." Try to help your team. But man, very unfortunate.
Yeah, no, it was. I think that just hasn't worked out at all in Milwaukee at all. Obviously unfortunate. You can't, with injuries you just never know, but it's one of those where I think he's like 30, he's got to be 35, 36 now at this point,
Yeah,
and coming back from those kind of things is tough. I think one of the only guys recently that's been like I guess an older guy is KD. Um, and he's kind of come back from that and he's gone to like a pretty, you know, if not a better level, the same kind of level. But yeah, for Dame, you can tell even like the last year or two, he's like slowed down a little bit, like before kind of injuries. So he was never, I mean, I guess in his prime, he was like a pretty explosive player, but I think now, coming back, if he does come back, good enough, it's going to be depending on like his 3-point shot so much that I don't know if you can really expect his necessary like all-star, level type of performance from him, but I do feel bad for him. I just think that situation in Milwaukee didn't work out. I think they tried like so desperately to get him get Giannis another player, another like all-star type of player. But in that process, they lost guys like a Drew Holiday and other type of really good role players that helped them win that championship in 2021. But for Dame at least, that really stinks. Like Tyrese Halliburton kind of had his way with him in this series even before he got hurt. It seemed like he was winning like the battle, I guess the one-on-one battle with him. But yeah, it stinks, man. I just hope he can come back and you'll still have a few good years of good performance.
yeah, no, absolutely unfortunate. There's been a lot of talk with Giannis maybe leaving the Bucks.
Mhm.
Do you think he should want out?
I think it's really up to him. You don't see many. I really thought like it's funny before like Luca got traded, I thought he was going to be like a legacy guy, like he'd be in Dallas his entire career. Um, Now for Giannis, it's different because he's won his championship, and I know you can't be satisfied off of one championship, but I would honestly leave if I was him because one you just got to see what the market is. I know he's gonna take his time. And a lot of people are saying the Knicks, a lot of people are saying like a Brooklyn, even though Brooklyn's not a championship team yet, but like a different environment for him to go to. Yeah, if I was him, I would leave because I think at this point your championship window is past. You know, you I never saw like the Doc Rivers as a good coach. Like Doc Rivers keeps getting hired at like people keep giving him a shot, and he got that championship when I was like 6 years old, and that's been like years and years and years ago. But honestly, if I'm being honest, I just gotta. I probably have to leave. I mean, the Bucks are gonna throw him a ton of money, but I don't think they're going to be able to pay him enough as like a big market team. Um,
Well, actually, no. The Bucks are in, uh, they're, they're cap hell.
yeah, actually,
They're
right, yeah.
in, they're an older team, very expensive. Brook Lopez is old. Obviously Damian Lillard, he might be out next year. Um, but I think if you're the Bucks, if you trade him, you can get a lot in return. Um, and I think get younger. You just saw um like Houston. They got rid of James Harden. They rebuild pretty fast. You just see teams with good GMs and good ownership. You can be good again.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think if I was him, I would leave. But at the same time, Giannis hasn't said anything. Not that he would, but
Yeah.
if he wants to stay in Milwaukee, have him stay in Milwaukee.
Mhm.
Look, and if he does leave, Bucks fans, I'm sorry, you can't be mad at him. He gave you a championship.
No, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I think, he's won his championship, so it's not one of those like, going into your 30s and you're kind of chasing a ring. He's already gotten his ring at this point, but I just think it's past for him. But I think the biggest concern for your Bucks fan is that he hasn't said anything like reassuring you. It's not even like oh no, I'll be back. Like there's no issue here. He's kind of been quiet, even though I mean after a few days after a playoff loss, you're gonna go back home. You're gonna take your time and you just think things out. But I don't know, Eddie. I feel like he could definitely. I could see him going to a. I know a dark horse here is like Houston. I don't know what you think about that, but I could definitely
No,
see
that
him.
that could be a good scenario for a possible scenario. But yeah, we'll see. You know, Giannis is a good player, but he needs to work on his jump shot. I think we all know that's an area that he lacks.
Hmm.
I mean, he could hit a mid range, but he's not very efficient.
Yeah,
Um,
not too great, but
uh, okay, we gotta talk about this. I haven't talked about it at all with anyone. Your reaction on what happened with um John Halpern, John Halpern and Giannis. Um, at the end of the game, in game five.
yeah, yeah. I think it was game five, game six. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, no, game five. First of all, what's your reaction on what happened? Because I was watching the game in real time, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then once I saw the replay, I'm like, oh, John is getting a little trippy with Giannis.
Yeah, that was something. That was a if you watch back like the broadcast of the game, like if you watch the ending and like Halliburton goes up, he runs up on the Tyrese Halliburton, not the dad. He goes and runs up on the um what's it called? Like press row there, like standing on the table. Right away, like not even I don't think the buzzer had even gone off yet. Halliburton's dad just runs over directly to Giannis, and it was kind of funny like Giannis's reaction because
He just stares at him like, who is this
yeah,
guy?
Halliburton's dad, he just kept constantly talking, like kept constantly going after Giannis, after Giannis, after Giannis. And Giannis just stood there like blank face, like almost a like, well, one, you're in disbelief you lose because your season's over and you lose to like a rival like Milwaukee. But then the second thing too is it's
No,
you're kind of like looking, you're like, who
Indiana.
am I
You
talking
want
to
to
me
say
right now?
Indiana?
Like, what was that?
You said Milwaukee. It's Indiana. Rival Indiana.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Milwaukee, like Indiana, like big rivals.
And you know what? You were up by seven with about 35 seconds left.
Yeah, I mean that game was nuts with like Gary Trent, like having the
All
it
you
was
had to
almost
do was catch the ball. All you had to do was
yeah,
catch the ball.
and it was interesting because the same thing happened in the Knicks game too, where Malik Beasley had like dropped that ball, like he had an open look from three, he dropped it, and then the same thing with with Gary Trent, like I was saying, where he had the ball in his hands and it just went right under his legs. But in terms of like his dad, like Halliburton's dad, that's a what was the rule they said? Did they ban him from, was it this
Um,
season or was it like
yeah,
three
right now
games?
it's just, right now he can't go to games for foreseeable future.
Mhm.
Um, home and away games. I don't know if it's just his playoff run or future. Maybe he is banned, but I don't think they fully said you're banned.
Yeah.
Which my thing is, it doesn't matter. NBA, NFL, baseball. You cannot go on the field.
Yeah, I agree.
No fan can go on the field. Parent, you cannot go on the field or court.
Hmm.
I think um, Giannis could easily have pushed him. And by the way, did you see Hal Burns' wife? Dude, she was like, "Please, Giannis, don't do anything. Don't." She had a scared look on uh,
Yeah.
her face. But
Hmm.
no, in reality, you cannot go on the court. You cannot go on the field. Um, I think the Pacers did the right thing. I'm sure the league also told the Pacers, hey, asking them, hey, what are you going to do about this situation? Because what the NBA does is protect stars, and that was an embarrassing look. Um, I think you know he should be banned right now. He needs to learn a lesson, and obviously he did apologize on Twitter. Um, but you, you can chirp, you can chirp at players respectfully, like a little banter. But man, you cannot touch them. You cannot get in their face. Uh, I just we should be celebrating Tyrese, but instead we're talking about his father, which is disappointing.
Yeah, do you like I think in the press conference, obviously if you're Tyrese Halliburton, that's not anything you want to talk about. Like you just win a series, like moving on to the second round. A lot of people thought this Pacers team was a lot worse than they were last year. So it was interesting his post game comments where he kind of was against his dad, which I'm not saying
Yeah, you don't want to bash your father. Like you
no,
want
no, you
to
don't want to. I think he was right to do it. Like I think it was a correct take in terms of like you can't let that happen. Like you can't have, I don't care who you are necessarily. Like if you're a fan, you just can't be like running up to players. Like it's different when you're in like the stands and you can kind of say whatever you want. But I also, like you're saying, Eddie, I wouldn't be, you know, you don't want to see like an NBA player fight a dad. But in those situations, it might be okay for like him to, I'm not saying take a full swing on him, but like if you're in his space, like
a little
you're
shove, maybe
you're
a little
you're in
shove.
you're in my area, like you're in the arena, like whatever happens can happen. So I don't know if I'm like,
Yeah,
advocating for a fight like
no,
a
no,
Giannis fight his dad,
but
but
Giannis did
it
was
happened, yeah.
he was face to face. He touched him forehead to forehead. Um, look, you don't want a full on fight. That's just a bad look. You don't want Malice in the Palace again.
Yeah.
Uh, but no, it just you can't go. Like I said, you can't go on the court. You can't go on the field.
Mhm.
It's unacceptable. And the league did something about it as they should.
Yeah.
Um, okay. I want to talk about Tyrese Halliburton's game winner. Uh, that was unbelievable. That was clutch. It seems like he's improving every year. And by
Yeah.
the way, he did not play a lot in the Olympics.
No, not at all. He's such an interesting player to me because he started like the season, like the regular season, he started so bad. Like he came off of such like a high. Like you take your team to the Eastern Conference Finals, you make the Olympics team. He didn't play in the Olympics very much, but you come off such like a high of a high that I think he started the season off like really slow. And a lot of people were thinking that, he's a 1 or 2 year wonder. There's a guy for the Knicks, well, that works on Knicks broadcast. His name's Wally Zerbiak, and he made a comment a couple years ago, like, want to be fake all-star. And a lot of people are saying that maybe he is a fake all-star. Maybe he's has, a couple of good years here and there, and that's kind of what, it is. He was super clutch going on the stretch. I think like we were talking about earlier with the whole Dame thing, Dame tested him. Like that, I think there's real like I don't know if it's like personal beef, but I know between those two guys, they are very competitive. And it was a thing where Dame's testing Halliburton and to see like what kind of guy is he? Can I easily get in his head? Can I get him
Yeah,
out
and
out of his rhythm?
they talk trash, and Halliburton won. And now Indiana Pacers face the Cleveland Cavaliers. That'll be an interesting series. I got Cleveland maybe in 6 games.
Yeah.
Um, just because I think Cleveland's has more depth, but who knows? If you have a star player, you have a chance.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. We gotta talk about the Knicks. Detroit. I'm glad that the Knicks won. I feel like Jalen Brunson is an underrated player. I think in my view, I think he's one of the clutchest players in the league right now. You know,
He won clutch player of the year.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And
He does it. He does it all.
I was surprised how close this series was. It seems like every game was wire to wire, and I
Hmm.
think there's a lot of pressure in New York, and man, I felt like if the Knicks lost that game 6, all of the pressure is on the Knicks game 7, and I think the Knicks would have probably lost. So, what was your take? Final shot, game winner, series clinch. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I'm a Knicks fan myself, so I think if we would have lost that game, I don't know if we would have won a game seven. So I think if you give him all that momentum going into game seven, I know it was at MSG. It was going to go to MSG for game seven, but if you give him like all that momentum, I don't know if they would have got it done because I think the Pistons were a really good team. I think in terms of a first round matchup, that's one of the hardest you can get in terms of like in who's in the playoffs right now. But they're also a team that they are not experienced. I mean, they have a few guys that have played, but like they're stars. Like Cade Cunningham's never played in a playoff series before. The Thompson brother, like he's super young. He's not like a good shooter, or he's very athletic, but he hasn't played in a lot of these games yet. So I almost think the Knicks got lucky in a way that this Pistons team doesn't know how to close games out. Now that fourth quarter was interesting because you the Knicks had a lead, kind of gave it back, like late third quarter, fourth quarter, had a lead, gave it back. But I think what really, stood out to me is that Jalen Brunson made shots when it mattered. I think he struggled a little bit in the series. Thompson's guarded him pretty well, but he had that really cool like up and under layup where he kind of faked him out in the baseline, and then he had the N1 play. But Thompson's one of the, I mean, he's still young, but he's one of the top, I would say, 15, 20 defenders in the league from what I saw in the series. Like he's super good and young, but Jalen Brunson shifted him a totally different way, like almost like on a whole different you know
right.
court. Almost took him off the court. That was a clutch shot. I think in terms of big shots and like playmakers for the Knicks, he might be certifying himself up there, Jalen Brunson, as one of the Knicks all-time greats if he's not there yet. I know people were having some talks on like the internet about is he already a better Knick than like Carmelo Anthony, which I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too.
I
And
was about to
also,
ask that
yeah,
question. I think he
you
is.
think you think so?
Carmelo
Yeah.
Anthony did nothing in the NBA besides scoring. He didn't win games.
Hmm.
Jalen Brunson's won games. Period. You have to win. I mean, I think you can say Carmelo Anthony was a better talent, but
Hmm.
if you're talking about just great all around players, I think Brunson easily. I think Brunson's a better teammate. I think the Knicks players. I'm not saying Carmelo Anthony was a bad teammate, but you got to do more than just scoring.
Hmm.
I know Jalen Brunson's a little small, but you know, he'll try defensively. Carmelo
Yeah.
didn't try on defensively,
Right.
and plus Jalen Brunson is in better shape. Sorry, he did. And you know what? The East is a lot better. When Carmelo played, the East was so bad and he couldn't make the playoffs. I mean, obviously, I know the Knicks organization is a lot better, but
Hmm.
still, if you're that guy, you get them in the playoffs.
Well, do you also remember too, like there was a time where everyone in the East like knew they weren't gonna make the finals, and like every single star player went out to the West. Do you remember that? Like
Yeah, it was because
they're like
of LeBron.
LeBron's gonna win every year. Like what's the point of me even like I'm either gonna team up with him or I'm gonna go like out West. So, but I don't know. This Knicks team's interesting because they play like. I mean, they're obviously the way Tibbs plays. They're so minute heavy that you hope that like it doesn't wear down on guys too much going down here in the stretch. But in terms of overall, like you just needed to get something out of Mikal Bridges, which they finally did in this game. All he has to do is be a three and almost D guy. Like, and I mean, with the Nets, he was like the main scorer. But if you can get anything out of him, like 3-point shooting, like scoring wise, you'll take that. But he's kind of been nowhere to be found except for this last game. So for the Knicks, you're hoping this is like a coming out party for Mikal Bridges that he can be the next guy to help out. I know Towns has been good too, but help out Brunson. But you're just kind of hoping that you don't have to run Jalen Brunson ISO basketball for the entire fourth quarter because it almost seems like they're so dominant heavy on just giving him the ball and running ISO that you just hope you get something out of other guys.
Yeah, no, for sure. We gotta talk about this. I felt like Detroit, they didn't have a lot of playoff experience. Game one, uh, Knicks went on a 21-0 run,
Mm.
to win the game. Rarely do win the game. You saw controversial no call on Tim Hardaway's junior three-point attempt in game four. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think playoff experience does matter. I think Cade Cunningham, people can debate, oh, who was the better player in this series? I think future Cade Cunningham is going to be the real deal.
No,
But
he's good.
Jalen
He's
Brunson was easily the better player. Um, but I just think playoff experience matters. Um, I just think the Knicks had a better all around team. And I predicted, you know, Knicks were going to win in six. I was a little disappointed in the Knicks not winning game five, but I think playoff experience matters, and I think that's why the Knicks won.
I agree. Yeah, I think in terms of having guys that have gone through it, and a lot of these guys have been in different playoff series, if not with the Knicks already, and they it shows you kind of have to go through like they're a team with a lot of experience and helping that way with guys off the bench. Think of a campaign that someone that's been in the NBA Finals, a Tibbs who hasn't coached in the NBA Finals, but he was an assistant coach with the Celtics, and you have guys that they've gone through different ex series and experiences that have helped them get to, where they are right now as players and just down the stretch they don't fold. You look at the Pistons, they're a young team. They really don't have much experience of guys that have been through big time series, have been through different type of experiences where they can, when it's the fourth quarter and you're down a couple points, where can you like lean to? Where can you can't really go to anything saying like I've done this before. I've been a guy that's had the ball last minute of the game, you need a couple shots to win the game. Now, regular season is so much different. People always say it all the time. They're like, well, if you're Cade Cunningham or if you're a guy like that, you're a star player. You have the ball all the time. And kind of see where people are coming from. But also the extent is too that this is totally different. You're at home. You're trying to make a big shot, and he had a shot at the end of the game. Like he had that layup, that left-handed layup that the Knicks rebounded, and then they got the ball to Brunson, and they made a three. So I think the NBA is so different than the NFL sometimes, where in the NFL you can get lucky. I feel like in the NFL you can have a run in, you can there's so much more to the game of, so many different guys that can make impacts. But in the NBA, it's almost I think that you can really you have to go through different playoff series, almost I won't say you have to lose, but you have to go through different levels of, playoff series to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely think playoff experience matters. So I want to talk about the Celtics.
Yeah.
We knew that they were gonna beat Orlando. I did not expect 5 games, but they won pretty easily.
Hmm.
Uh, I believe Tatum. We know he's a great player, but he wasn't there game 2, and obviously the Celtics won by 9 points. My first takeaway is okay. Tatum's a great player. I think he would easily, if he's not there, Celtics are not winning a championship.
Hmm.
But B, Celtics are really, really good. They have a lot of depth.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're that guy and your team wins, maybe you're not considered one of the best players in the league. That's just how I stand right now. Like,
Hmm.
I think he's a top 5 player, but I don't think he's one of the best.
Yeah, I'm not a Jason Tatum hater. Obviously, he's a very good player, but I don't see it from people in terms of like in the playoffs yet. I don't see him as being like, we let's go back to like a previous conversation we had about face of the league. For a long time, Eddie, I feel like people were pushing him to be the face of the league.
Yeah,
They're like, is he going to make that next jump because he's part of the, two or three big time franchises with, Celtics. And the thing with him is his team is so good that obviously he's their star player, but there's so many pieces around him that he doesn't have to be his best every night. We
yeah,
talked about how are the Knicks, like a team like the Knicks, how are the Knicks going to win a championship or make it like past this round? Jalen Brunson has to be like
that
un
dude.
unbelievable. Yeah, he has to be that dude. Yeah. With the Celtics, it's almost like if Tatum's not playing well, well, that's okay because you have Jalen Brown, a Drew Holiday, a Derek White, and they really didn't lose anybody. Like if you think about it, rotation wise, they didn't really lose anybody. Like
Yeah,
they brought the entire team back. So, but in terms of Tatum, I think he's a very good player. Is there sometimes I wish he could take his game,
do another level.
I'm not saying he's not at a next level now, but he's not, I guess, if we're gonna, take him as a top five player that some people say he is he that big in the postseason yet? I don't know. He had a pretty good postseason, like finals last year, but I mean, he didn't get the finals MVP. So it's almost gonna be that's gonna be the chip on the back of his shoulder that, you won the NBA finals, but Jalen Brown won the finals MVP. It's almost like, is this the postseason where you're in your run right now? Are you guys gonna take care of it? But no, the Celtics team, as much as we were just saying like the Knicks, had a pretty good series, I think the Celtics team, I think they're going to do some damage. I don't think a lot of teams, like I don't think the Cavs, I guess, are a team that's going to give them that much trouble. If you kind of hear what I'm saying,
Yeah, no, I hear you.
they're just dominant. They have guys everywhere, defense, scoring, shooting. So
Yeah, no, I hear you. No, I just think, you know, if your best player's not on the court, most of the time your team loses. So,
yeah.
um, I just think he has impact, but not a whole lot of impact.
Hmm.
Um, but the Celtics for me, man, they just with all that depth, with all that talent, I was disappointed in their game 3 performance. Uh, it's a close game, but man, they just have one of these. You're gonna have one of these games where it's like, really, you put up that performance?
Hmm.
I mean, they're obviously a talented team, but it's like, man, if you don't hit the 3 ball, you're absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I mean, that's not even just a Celtics problem. That's just like a league problem. It's like if you're not if you're not making threes, you're not winning, and it's they have guys like a Hauser that's a specialist, a three-point shooter. Like Derek White's a pretty good three-point shooter, but I think their biggest thing too is for the Celtics is that like Peyton Pritchard took such a big jump. Like I know he played like a lot last year and was super important in the finals, but
He was 6 man of the year.
yeah, I mean like you just said, like six man of the year, he took that big jump scoring wise that they I mean, like I said, they're built everywhere. They have guys off the bench, like they're fine. But he took such a huge scoring like jump off the bench that you're like he can be a guy that Now at this point, if you're Joe Mazzulla, you're like you can put him in the game. You know, you can take your Jalen Brown, your Tatum out, and you're like, I feel comfortable with him giving me 15 points a game, which last year might not have been the case, but like he made that big jump and I'm sure we'll get into it. I don't know if you've already said this on your podcast, like your finals predictions and like who you think's gonna win, but I just don't see like a lot of teams being an issue for Celtics at all. Western Conference and Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I said Celtics are
Yeah,
gonna
I mean
beat the
it's a pretty
Warriors.
good
I got the
bet.
Warriors winning the West, but we'll see. I think they have a chance to get to the Western Conference Finals, but I'm not loving what I'm seeing from them in the past two games. But yeah, I mean, I think their toughest series might be versus Cavs, but you know, I want to see more from the Thunder.
Hmm.
We're gonna see who they really are versus either the Clippers or Denver.
Hmm.
Because Memphis, they weren't good. They totally quit. Um, you
They
know,
fired
they
their coach. They were done. Yeah, they weren't.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't really know too much about the Thunder. I think we're gonna get it. We're gonna see a lot more from them. In round two, more info, more intel. So I'm excited for round two for the Thunder. But in terms of Celtics versus the East, yeah, I know you're a Knicks guy, but I don't see the Knicks beating the Celtics. They haven't beat them all year, but you
Yeah.
know the Pistons, they beat the Knicks 3-1 in the regular season. So does regular season and postseason are they kind of like the same thing? The answer is easily
No.
no. So
No.
you know the we're gonna see who the Knicks really are. So
Hmm.
I'm excited for Boston versus Knicks round two rivalry.
Yeah.
Both teams don't like each other, so I'm excited for this series. But I think Celtics do win in five. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's
But
funny too. Like quickly, I think the Thunder were so dominant in that series that they almost like got forgotten about because you have so many like games that are going like seven, game series that are going 7 games or long series runs that I remember like on Easter and they just totally
they won by
blew,
51.
they just
They won by 51
totally blew
points.
the Grizzlies out of the arena and it's one of those that like I even like I knew the Thunder were in the playoffs obviously, but it was more of like you kind of forget a little bit because you've been watching so many other teams like you're watching the Clippers series and the Knicks series and like these kind of different series going on that you forget that like the Thunder or that team like they're good like they're but my point too are they too young? Do they have what it takes to beat like a veteran team? We'll have to find out. So
Yeah.
that's why they play the games, right? So.
You know, I think the NBA, they get critiqued. Oh, there's not enough physicality.
Mhm.
This postseason, it's been pretty physical. And you know what? Yes, you have some injuries, but you know what? I kind of like the physicality.
I do too. I think it was either game 3 or game 4 with the Knicks series where they just didn't blow the whistle. The guys were going to the rim like it could have been a foul, could have not been a foul, but they were just letting them play. And that was actually one of the best like games I've seen, like postseason games I've seen in a long time. Where I'm not saying like don't call fouls, but my point is like just let the guys play. I know you
Yeah,
agree with me too.
the
Like
refs should not dictate
yeah,
the games.
it is so annoying, and that's part of the reason why I think the NBA, not that they've like plummeted like ratings wise. I mean they have a little bit, but I think one of the issues is that people just complain so much. Like it's every single play, Eddie. Like it's every play. It's if it's a Luca or LeBron, it's like they're going like this, they're going like this, they're like they're ringing their finger, like going to the coach, like replay this, replay that, and I, most of the time it doesn't work. Most of the time it's like I didn't touch the guy, and then they'll go like show the TNT replay, and he's like slapping a guy in the wrist, like slapping him like on his like side, and it's like come on, man, like you foul the guy, like just own up to it. Like it's one of those where I love the physicality because I think like we also like when we were growing up, like I think we still saw the early 2010s where it was you get the ball to your post player like a Dwight Howard, or you get your ball to like, a dominant big like a Kevin Garnett, like growing up, like, and you just let them work, right? And you don't see that much anymore. You don't see, I mean, this isn't like a new thing, but I do love the physicality. I do love that like the grinder type of playoff series where it's you have to, who's gonna make it to the end. Like guys are gonna get hit, guys are gonna go through bruises and stuff, but who's gonna be there at the end to make the plays? And I love that's physical. I love like as much as I love to see shooting, I also love to see a good, like down low physical matchup myself too. So of
Hey, so we're about to wrap up. Ryan, thank you for coming on the show.
course, yeah, appreciate having me.
I appreciate your insight, and you're more than welcome to come on again.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Uh,
We'll see how the playoff series go, how they end here. But honestly, I thought it's been pretty good so far, the playoffs. Like I've enjoyed it, even though some
oh,
games
same
have
here,
been
same here.
bad. But
You
it's
know,
been a good
we
run
got
so far.
two game sevens left. It's win or go home. Versus Warriors, Clippers, Lakers. Uh, no, not Lakers. I mean Warriors, Rockets.
Mhm.
Um, and by the way, one last point. We knew the West was a lot tougher than the East. So I
100%.
asked my cousin Joey Gallagher. I
Hmm.
asked, hey, will there be any upsets? We got some upsets
Yeah, of
In the Wolves Lakers. So uh, again, Ryan, thank you, and we'll see you soon.
course. I appreciate it, Eddie. Have a good one, man. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you too.